The wait was worth it. NieR Episode 4 has finally arrived, and this episode popped off. It's not like NieR is touching subject matter and storytelling techniques that haven't been seen before. I've seen plenty of series, whether books, TV, movie, anime, talk about the complexity of what it means to be alive and how that relates to machines evolving. But the difference between NieR and so many others, and there isn't a specific moment that separates it, but all these little slight deviations have turned this show into one thought-provoking, compelling adventure that has me feeling distress and despair when I see these cute little robots get brutally murdered and all they're trying to do is watch a play. But then on the flip side, by the end of this episode, you also see what those machines, these bots could become if left alone, and you're left with this conundrum of how far should technology be allowed to progress. We look at humanity as a whole. There's bad apples, there's good apples, there's neutral apples. Humans can be a large variety of horrible and amazing, but we get to exist until we make mistakes and then we get punished depending on where we live. So why can't they have the similar fate? But then, logically, as a human, we recognize, even ignoring the stories we've seen, where machines got too complex and just exterminated humanity, we have that natural fear because we made them or we existed before them, we're above them, and our lives should be the priority. And is that wrong? I mean, it's open for debate, and my personal opinion is no, we should value our lives more than them. But at the same time, I feel so bad when I see some of the horrible things that happen to seemingly innocent yet living creatures. Great episode, full live reaction to today's episode available on my Patreon. So if you want to see my full brain exploding throughout this episode, head on over there and consider supporting. An amazing show to react to for sure, but the more I watch, the more I enjoy. And I think it's so interesting, right? And something many viewers have been bringing up over these episodes. It's only been around now for 4 episodes, but there's been a lot of discussion about this. We have these androids, we have these creatures that, by all accounts, are machines. We look at 2B, 9S, and seemingly they are machines through and through. Yet they seemingly, despite feeling human in a lot of ways, we look at how they talk, we look at how they interact, they seem like they could be considered a robotic human in a lot of ways. Yet they're completely fine because they obey. And it basically seems to be, so far, coming down to the concept of, if a machine obeys, and a machine has no desires and will of its own and recognizes it doesn't have feelings, then it can be used as a tool for humanity in order to get the job done. But then you have these machine life forms that are just doing their own thing. They're running amusement parks, they're performing plays, and they act as if they have feelings. And supposedly, from everyone else's point of view, that's impossible. They can't have feelings. But it doesn't feel to me like what I'm seeing is them just mimicking what they hear from humans. It feels like, no, they have compassion, they have empathy, they have fear. That moment at the very end, when 9S comes up and you have one just saying, please don't hurt, gets its head cut off, and then the other gets stabbed. That really felt like a family begging for their lives. And it's a hard pill to swallow because the creature we fight in this episode seemingly lost its marbles. My interpretation of that whole thing is something that wanted to be pretty just ultimately became the monster we saw. And did that need to be killed? I think absolutely. But do the people at the end, or the machines at the end, deserve to be killed? I don't know. And I think that's what makes NieR such a compelling adventure to follow, because you're looking at so many moments. There's that moment, I'm not sure if it was episode 3 or if it was episode 2, but when we just see mostly those machine life forms, just they're planting flowers and just, it's such a peaceful yet silent episode. You look at stuff like that and you say, why should they be punished over the fear of them becoming more alive and more dangerous for humanity, when half the time humanity is its own worst enemy? But there is the logical side of saying, they can't be trusted of what they can become, and a machine that's as complex as a human, but potentially lacks the emotion and the will to listen to humans, could easily destroy the human race without much struggle. But then you look at, I think this is where it really gets interesting. So you have like these robots that are basically they're just trying to live their life, and then you have characters like 2B, and they are completely fine because they're used and they have no will of their own. A machine who obeys can exist. A machine who doesn't and has free will, that's where it gets interesting. And I like the fact that it doesn't even just stop there. So we have the leader of our crew here who basically, they're like, hey, we need reinforcements. Don't worry about reinforcements. Use the so-and-so group as basically bait, and then honestly, whoever dies, dies. It's basically gets summed down to the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And it's a concept that has been brought up in multiple stories, and hell, it's a concept that even is used by rulers in our own world. But I think what's interesting is that no matter how many die, as long as the end result justifies those deaths for them, it's all fine. And the philosophical mind explosion mess that it makes you think of so many possibilities and not know what to interpret what as. It's such a fun adventure for that alone. Knowing that we did have a delay after only 3 episodes, I was a little worried about how this episode visually might look, but to my surprise, it looked incredible. I mean, was the 3D noticeable when Dresszilla was spinning around? Yes, it was noticeable, but was it distracting? No, I think they blended everything quite well. There was good speed and momentum, the effects, whether explosions or bullets ricocheting or swords clashing, they did a really good job. And I'm kind of curious because prior to this anime starting, there was rumors that it was kind of in production hell. And I'm kind of thinking the big thing about the show that is probably struggling production-wise is the 3D sides of things, because most of the episode looked very consistent. It just looked like, oh, they're probably struggling on big action scenes, and that's what caused the delay. Are we going to have more delays? Probably, but if not, bless you anime gods, because this show is one compelling adventure I want to see more of. But I will take whatever episodes they give me. No matter how many delays they throw at me, I will come back to talk about NieR, because this show is thought-provoking, the action is incredible, and I think even when you look at smaller details like the hacking, the way they continue to evolve the hacking, which could just be a little computer screen in front of the characters' faces or a visual effect, no, it really feels like you're going inside the creatures' minds. And the way these machines try to counter and survive is just, it rips on your heart, man. Like, sometimes I'm like, yeah, it needs to be killed, but then other times I'm like, isn't this really just killing a living thing? And really, the show boils down to, is it alive or is it machine? And that interpretation will be different for everyone watching. And that's what makes a show like this truly pop. But yeah, like I said, this was a great return, beautifully produced, thought-provoking as ever. I mean, maybe it's recency bias and I've just been craving more NieR, but I might even go as far to say this was the best episode I've seen out of the 4. Can't wait to see where episode 5 and the future of this show goes, and fingers crossed we don't have too many more bumps along the production road. But thoughts and feelings yourself down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, ring that bell so you can get notified when I upload on the channel, and of course, as I mentioned, we get that full live reaction over there on the Patreon. And while you're there, you can also get a video shout out like Calvin Atkinson, Coconut Gang, and Demon Emperor are getting today. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.